last week on the 23rd of last month anyway, on the 23rd of June. That was my last pace, but there were things that were happening. I couldn't come in. I know it was such an eventful week. And most of you guys expected me to come, but I couldn't because of the things that I was dealing with. Sometimes in the room here and there, but right, just not to lose heart because I'm always here. But it's only equity, so it was just something else. And in my ear. So apologies to those that expect me to come through and lead the conversation, but I do understand that you guys you are having the conversation, and it is very much appreciated. Kuti, we are so many of us that can be doing this, and we always acknowledge people that take the time to lead the conversation. Um, yeah, so it is yeah. I understand that it has not been easy for so many people, um, especially our relatives in South Africa. Um, as they went through, the period last week, and still going through, the period even this week. I know there's some, that are trying to find, their way home from South Africa because of the ultimatums that were given by those that were saying we need the illegals and even the legals to pack their bags and go back, to their countries. So, I mean, when you get a situation whereby um, you get that ultimatum, being given, it does not matter. It didn't matter anymore, to them, whether you had papers or whether you didn't have papers. Everybody was just lumped into the, into the same basket, and just imagine. Probably, you've gone there as a result of you being invited to the country or you having made an application for a job vacancy. And in there, it was found that there's no one with the skill set that can match the job description, and they had to look outside to get people to come through. And then you're brought into the country, right, with those skill sets that you have, and you're being told that okay, we've got this thing that is going on. We need every foreigner. So the operative word here became foreigner. It was no longer whether you were legal or illegal. It did not matter. So it was just foreigners. I know this was not targeted at Zimbabweans, alone, but we know we have got a good number of our folks, multitudes and multitudes of our people based, in South Africa. But so I'm just saying, you have everything, invested everything, you are there, and now you're being met, with this, and you're forced, to leave. You're forced, to relocate. And then when you then look at, the way things, are, the politics, the geopolitics, the everything, it gets you to wonder. Because this right here, the conversation gets to be shifted from what is happening in terms, not Kuti. You see, one thing that I want to put out, that I want to go out on a limb here and say, Kuti, what I am on about, today is not to downplay whatever it is that has happened or the suffering that people had to endure. I know some people were beaten. I know, I understand, some even were killed. I understand livelihoods were lost. I understand people lost, their property. understand people lost, their livelihoods, etc. I get that. I do understand that. But where I'm coming from is not to say, Kuti, I am in any way not wanting to be focusing on their plight, on their immediate, on their lived experience, because everything that these guys have gone through, they've got a story, to tell, a lived experience, how it was, how they were targeted, how they managed to, to wriggle their way out of maybe a tricky, situation. Because some of these things were being told in real time when they were happening. It's unfortunate that I did not get, to be part and parcel of some of those conversations. As I explained, Kuti, it's something, that I was dealing with that was, personal. But at the end of the day, their lived realities, lived experiences, people went through a lot, and that can never be downplayed. And in such situations, the immediate clarion call is to ask for immediate help or to seek for assistance. I've seen, some folks were saying, oh, we are coordinating, we're bringing in buses, we're doing this, we're doing this. We get people out of South Africa, go back, to their respective countries. We are going back to Zimbabwe, go back to Zimbabwe. If you're going back to, Mozambique, you go to Mozambique. If you're boarding a flight to Lagos, you do that. I see embassies, doing what, they could do here in Zimbabwe. I mean, in Zimbabwe, you could see those that are eating with the establishment, that is caused the suffering, saying, oh, we have decided to send 20 buses from Manika Lane, oh, we have decided to increase the buses to 50 buses. And all the government is saying, oh, we've availed 1 million, as if, it is, their money to get, people to come from, South Africa to come to Zimbabwe. These things were happening in real time. And kana zvinhu zviitika in real time, inenge iri pandonium, inenge iri mandleya ndleya, kujamba kwamabhiza. People will be all over. The uncertainty is real. You don't even know what is waiting behind, a bush, or what is lurking in the wilderness. Rungu already on the tease in this direction and something, will come after you. It's all about the lived realities, the lived experiences of people. And we need to understand that. Because for us to tap into our humanitarian self, you need to understand one's lived reality. Kuti munhu ari kuaffectwa sei? But these, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about scratching, the surface. Because you are looking at this thing from the perspective of those who are finding themselves in an unfortunate position, in an unfortunate, situation. But there's another story that is associated with those who are behind, these things. I'm not saying, whatever it is, that they were doing is right. I'm not saying, that I am supporting whatever it is, that, these guys, were doing. But I believe where we are as Zimbabweans, there are lessons to be learned. So I want us to focus on one thing and one thing alone, which is that of the cause. I'm not here to sensationalize, those events. I've said I could have I could have I could have done spaces highlighting the plight of the folks in South Africa, highlighting, what they're experiencing at the hands of these folks, that call themselves March on March, movement. I could have done that. I could have been a person who would invest time and time, hours upon hours, trying to make sense of what is going on, in South Africa. But I want us to take a step back and sit for a moment and say, let us interrogate the cause behind. Let us interrogate the deeper forces that shaped the public anger, the political mobilization, and the choices that people make when they believe that their government is failing them. Because I believe there are lessons to be learned, there. I'm not condoning what happened, with these folks here. But I believe there's something, that we can learn. And the lessons that can be learned from that, I believe they can be applied to our own circumstances. And we can do something about our situation as Zimbabweans. We witnessed, the rise of this March on March movement, which was a civic mobilization that gave birth to saying, Guti, you are a foreigner, whether you are legal or whether you are an illegal, we are giving you until 30th of June to leave the country. And when many of us, including me, when some of us, when we heard these folks, speak, to me it looked like, this is, oh no, we are back to xenophobia again. And that is what it is on the surface. We are now witnessing another rejection of foreign nationals. Because look at it, it has got the hallmarks of everything that points to xenophobia. Everything that points to xenophobia, a rejection of foreign nationals. And this time they took it up a notch. You are an illegal, you are illegal, it does not matter. You are a foreigner. So you got to go. But if we look at this from that perspective, I believe we'll be missing the real story. Because underneath the surface, ladies and gentlemen, there is a cause. And to these people, they were pointing to a set of economic and political pressures that pushed them as ordinary South Africans to a breaking point. If you want to go by stats, I don't know, the unemployment rate in South Africa, but I understand it is, it is around, 30%,